have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Mike Dukakis, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
I'm Jack Osborne, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Hammond, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Welcome back to the second hour of Dr. J Radio Live. I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the City of Angels, right here from Late Night in the Midlands. Also broadcasting simulcastly from Black Swamp Digital Radio, and in the United Kingdom, we also have Deep Program Radio. This hour, we bring to you Maria Schmidt. She is a ghost and paranormal researcher, and she's responsible for the National Ghost Hunting Day. Maria, are you with us?
I sure am, Dr. J. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. Now, before we go into the National Ghost Hunting Day, let's get some background behind you first. How did you first get into paranormal?
Well, it was actually quite a natural process. I'm a registered nurse, and I dealt a lot with death and dying. And I had a few experiences just from that, which I probably won't want to get into in this segment, but certainly it's a fascinating experience, and a lot of clinicians have these experiences, and that's how they get introduced, because we are on the threshold of life and death quite often. My husband operated a very, very haunted inn, Seven Sisters Inn out of Ocala, Florida. And there was not a day that did not go by without some incredible activity. It was extremely active. We had a lot of fun with it, but we noticed that, there was such a thing. And it's quite obvious. After you have one or two or four or five or 17, 18, 20 experiences, there's no doubt. So just as, I'm not a ghost hunter per se. I like to say I am a ghost hunter collector. I like to collect things from, experiences by people, places that are haunted. That's what we do now. We're a ghost hunter collector.
Now, here's something I've always wondered, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering who may not be so much into ghost investigations as you are. Why is it certain ghosts haunt people and other ghosts haunt locations? For instance, let's just say you have a haunted house and a family moves, but the ghost follows. But then you have a whole another house in another city, maybe even another country, but that family moves out, the ghost just stays there, another family moves in, and that ghost haunts them. What's the difference of ghosts that haunt people versus ghosts that haunt locations? And why?
Very interesting question, and I don't have the answer. I'm not sure that anybody that is living has an answer to that. I can tell you from my personal experiences what I gather. You're trying to be logical about this stuff. We started this company called Haunted Journeys, and our motto is, a haunting is history wanting to be heard. And that is what I feel is the core of a haunting. In other words, when there is a spirit that wants to tell you about what his life was, or what his either his anger was, or his sorrows were, or his happiness was, or what he was most proud of while he was alive. If he wants to get that message out, it will haunt. It will haunt, the property or the person. I think once you've engaged with that spirit, with a particular spirit, and they feel comfortable with you, then they keep attached. And I hate to use the word attached because it has such a negative connotation, but it becomes your buddy. It becomes your friend. I had one at Seven Sisters Inn. His name is Ben Reinauer. He was one of the original folks from the turn of the century Victorian building that, he was the first guy whenever we started EVP, whenever we started a session. He was a front guy introducing himself, making himself known. He was like the representative of all the ghosts in that building. And him and I became really close friends. And to the point, like, I felt he was protecting me because I valued his history. I valued whatever he wanted to say. He trusted me. And now we've moved 800 miles away, and Ben continues to be with me. And I think that might have answered your question, that I think is a little bit about wanting to hear the story, and that's why they haunted property, all the way to trusting you and becoming almost like their buddy, and that's why they stay with you. On a negative end, I don't know what to say. I don't know whether it's because I've never been in that position, but I've heard stories of when people become very troubled, or their biological, psychological, emotional systems are kind of downgraded, anemic. They become almost vulnerable to negativity coming in. I do believe that that's an infestation. It does happen. But they wait for that right person to come in, people that are vulnerable and weak.
Now, traditional religions believe that when someone dies, if they're good, they go to heaven. If they're bad, they go to hell. But it seems to me that some of these ghosts are neither in heaven nor in hell, but they're on this same plane that we live on. Do you know why they do not move to that next plane?
And you know what? I would almost tell you that this is almost like the plane of hell, isn't it, in some cases? I once heard in my studies that a ghost is someone that never crosses. It's basically they are earthbound. They have never crossed, and they've never gone to the other plane, whether it's hell or heaven or whatever we choose to call it, the other dimension. I do believe that differentiates from the spirit. A spirit is one that did cross, that did go to the other side, that did go to the other dimension, but they chose to come back to visit. Whereas the ghost haunts, again, the ghost is the one that lurks, had never crossed over. He haunts, and then the spirit that just did go over, did cross over, and came back, he visits. So that's how I put it in my mind. Again, I'm not an expert, but a lot of the tales that I hear and a lot of the evidence I have found out there pretty much substantiates that following of thought.
Now, what are some of the craziest stories you could tell us about some of the craziest aboriginals you've seen, or the apparitions you've seen of ghosts? I mean, are they some like in the movies where they look like all tortured and bloodied? And I mean, obviously they're bloodied if they're, apparitions, but you get the idea I'm picturing, right?
I know. I understand exactly. I personally, the only type of apparitions I've seen were shadows, basic shadows. I have not seen a 3D in front of me. I think very few people have. It's considered the holy grail of the haunted experience. I do know that for instance, all these ghost hunting shows, Dr. J, I mean, have you ever seen an apparition, or have they ever captured an apparition that they can show on TV? And the answer is no. They never have, and they probably never will. But I will tell you, the amount of energy that we rally up on the world's largest ghost hunt, the year 1 and year 2, on both years, we had one apparition captured on each of those years. So the first year, an apparition was caught, a full-fledged 3D, translucent, but very well captured on an image, not a video, an image at the Loew's Opera House in Cynthiana, Kentucky, the home of the Walking Dead. It was captured there. And then the second year, it was captured up in Summer Wind ruins up in Wisconsin.
Yes.
I'm sure you're pretty familiar with the Summer Wind. That was caught on video. A walking apparition through the woods, through the ruins of Summer Wind. Extremely impressionable. And again, that was a translucent figure walking. It looked like a female. Both were females. So to go on record that the world's largest ghost hunt, I captured 2 apparitions on evidence film and image. Is crazy. It's crazy. It's hard, and that tells you the amount of energy that is drawn on the world's largest ghost hunt.
Now, a lot of times, some of the only ways you can guess what era they're from is the clothing that they might be wearing. Were you able to identify some of it from these 2 women aberrations?
You know what? It didn't. No, it wasn't that. We knew they were women because they were wearing a dress, and I would have to go back, and I don't think it was any logic to the era that they were in. They were long, flowing dress. So that maybe tells you that it was probably before the mid-century, because after I would say the 50s and 60s, women tend to use shorter dresses or slacks. So that we can tell, unless of course it was a nightgown. I don't know. It's hard to say. But that's an interesting question. And from those 2 experiences that we captured, I couldn't.
Have you ever come across any violent ghosts?
Oh, yeah, I do, and it's quite story. And I don't tell the story too much, Dr. J, so you're getting a good one from me.
Nice.
My husband and I, and truly it is a really incredible story. My husband and I, prior to running the Seven Sisters Inn in Ocala, Florida, we had an assisted living facility, and where we took care of the elderly. And that in itself is extremely active as well, because I took care of them until the end of life. So there was one particular resident that, and most of them had dementia disorders. Let's say that. And I am a registered nurse, but I come in through a very clinical, mindset. So I did a lot of geropsych, in other words, gerontology psychiatry, which is exclusively to the elderly. The first thing I think about is schizophrenia or bipolar. I become very clinical minded and saying, well, this behavior is due to this, and then therefore we have to treat it this way. Well, there was one particular lady that was really, it was strange. It was very strange. We had taken a blood test from her, and she was definitely bleeding. And she was getting to the point, like, if she didn't get a transfusion, she was going to die soon. And so we talked to her. She still had able mind. She says, nope, I want to die. I don't want to be treated. I don't care what it is. I have the right to decide that I don't want treatment and I don't want treatment. So, and that's that she didn't want treatment. So we put her on the list of hospice, because we knew we were going to die. Well, this lady survived for another, I would say, 4 months with an incredibly, what I call severe anemia. Most people would have gone into congestive heart failure from that anemia. I mean, for those that are clinical, your normal hemoglobin is 4 to 11,000, and hers was about 1 or 2. Nobody survives that. Wow. And during that period, she wasn't eating and she wasn't drinking. And so 4 months of this body basically just taking out space. And she was alive, but she was not Jackie. It was not Jackie. And it was an incredible transformation. All of a sudden, she would start growling, and her behavior, personality completely changed. This was a facility in Florida, and when we walked into the room was absolutely frigid cold. And she would start talking in tongues, and just in different, So now I'm saying, this is not schizophrenia. Dr. J, I was like, no, I cannot diagnose this. This is not. The daughter came by and saw this transformation of her mother and said, this is not my mother. that's not my mother. Clinically, I'm saying to myself, this person should not be alive. There's no reason for this person can survive this. So I invited a priest over from a Catholic parish and to visit, and he spent some time with her. I wasn't in the room, and the next Sunday I saw him at church, and I said, well, how did your visit with Jackie go? And he says, it's quite entertaining, actually. And I gave her no background about what the experiences that we were getting. And I said, how was your visit? And she said, well, it's amazing. My first language is French. And I go, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I'm French Canadian, and that's my first language. And he said, she spoke fluent French. It was so nice to speak to someone that spoke so well. And I shook my head. I go, I didn't remember Jackie knowing French. I went immediately to her daughter and said, does Jackie know French? She said, my mother wanted to learn French. We wanted to learn languages. And she said she just couldn't learn to speak a foreign language. She was very hard-headed. I said, that is not my mother who spoke French. And that was to a priest. And the priest was, I would say, kind of a weak clergy type, and the devil just basically, and I'm sure this was a demonic possession because or a low elemental, I should say, possession, because he flirted with that priest.
Wow.
Another time when she was, now I'm getting to the climax of the story here. When she was actually physically dying, this is towards the end of these 4 months, and she had a very, very high fever, and there was only one nursing assistant that could do anything with her because she was through violence with them. She would take their arms and twist them, growl at them. This person was not weak, even though she had not eaten for 4 months and had a horrible hemoglobin. She basically would attack people. And there was only one person, and she happened to be Native American, and had all this stuff around her to protect her. We're all afraid of this person. So I give my staff a lot of kudos for keeping her, within some dignified, human, status. But I said, would you mind giving her a Tylenol suppository because she was 102 fever, and it's that way. We had to keep her body in comfort, and she actually turned around and went to put the suppository in her rectum, and there was a crucifix in her rectum.
Wow!
And I am not kidding you. This is, as God is my witness, this is the truth, Dr. J. And she came back white as pale, shaking, and said, Maria, you're not going to believe what I found in her rectum. And she gave it to me, and I almost passed out when I saw that. She used to talk to things in the room, and she used to call them her servants, whatever. When she finally passed away, what really is remarkable about the story is that there was a room that was right next to her room, and it basically was a mirror of her room. Every time I put a person in that room, not her room, but the opposite room next to her, the person would die within weeks. And by the time the third person died, these are brand new residents that we had. And the person, they would not last more than 2 weeks. They would die of unnatural causes. And I decided after the third death, I was not going to let anybody else. It was income that I was losing on the business, but I would not allow any more admissions into that room because I knew there was something going on. Yeah.
This is a double-faceted question here. What are some of the most famous places that are haunted that you visited? And the other part is, what are some of the most famous haunted places that you know of but you have not visited?
Oh, no. I think, gosh, I've been to quite a few, but again, not as a ghost hunter, but basically as I was a researcher, a collector and a researcher. one place that I will never forget is the Lizzie Borden House. That was an amazing property that we went to visit that was truly at the same level as the Seven Sisters was. It was extremely haunted. I was very, impressed by the activity there. My gosh, I've been to so many that, I'm trying to think of the ones that were the most impressionable. Mansfield was pretty impressionable too, and up in Ohio. And then the one in West Virginia in Moundsville, that was also very, very impressionable. But, those are very famous ones. The ones that hit, those are famous ones, and you did ask for famous ones. But I can tell you there are properties that are much smaller and that are just incredible. That they've never been, and those are the ones that really hit home because they've not been discovered. And I will tell you, with this year's National Ghost Hunting Day, we've got a bunch of those peaches on our radar for that night. So that's one place that if you want to find what I call them virgin hunts, because they're just not investigated at all, if that many, and they're very precious. They're very haunted, and people just don't know about them. So, yeah.
When you go on a hunt, what sort of equipment do you bring? Obviously, I would think you bring something to record electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, specialized cameras to record in infrared and in night vision, right? What else do you bring?
I don't. I'm very simplistic. Again, I am not a paranormal investigator, but the most important piece of equipment I bring is my senses. I'm not a medium, but everybody has that capability of knowing that you're not alone.
That's
extremely important. The sixth sense.
Yes.
That's probably your best equipment that you could ever bring in. I do like the digital recorder. I will bring that in because that validates black and white, if there is presence. I happen to be more tactile sensitive. If you don't hear that too often, that's more of the nursing terminology. And I use that to describe what I do. I feel more through my hands. My hands are extremely, they're like a medium's eyes, third eye. I use my hands for that. So I'm very good with the 1,000 rods, incredibly good with them. And I also do pretty impressionable automatic writing. So I think spirit uses my hands. For some reason, my hands are their target when they communicate with me, and they have never failed me. So those are the pieces of equipment I like to use.
There's two things I want to ask with what you just said. Let me start with the second part first. Automatic writing. Can you describe that in detail? I know it. I just want to make sure every listener knows it. And then the other part of that same question, not including the part before, is can you tell us some of the automatic writings that had gone through you and have been produced and were so mind-blowing that maybe gave you some insight into something that you normally wouldn't have no idea what they came from or what about?
Right. Automatic writing is when you, and you don't have to go into a trance or anything. You just have to be in a very calm and very, and I always pray before I do it. It's so important because every time you reach out and you communicate directly with spirit, you should always protect yourself because it can be good or bad that try to connect with you and you want to try to, stick with the good and not the bad. So it's just basically holding a pen very lightly in my hands and not putting pressure on the paper so that the pen starts writing by itself. And it's a skill that I developed on my own. I would say about 50% of us are able to do that. But if you do decide to do that and you want to test it to see if you If you are able to do that, you definitely need to make sure that you are protected, because it is a very strong connection to the dead, to spirit. And then the pen just keeps rolling and starts, and I'll talk to them when I do that, and a message will come out. The most significant things I've written have been names. I have found names of people that have been trying to communicate with us, and that's how we found out names of the people at the inn. We had 7 house spirits at the Seven Sisters Inn. Everyone had a name. Everyone had a name, and it was through my automatic writing, but then it was validated by medium. So that's what made it extraordinary, because they say, yeah, there's a Daniel here. And I go, yes, there is a Daniel here. And I already knew that from my automatic writing. So, yes.
So these spirits use your hand and essentially guide it to write in a pen their name?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I'll ask them what's their name, and they'll tell me their name. And that's how I found out. I've got several spirit guides. And everybody does. Everybody has several spirit guides. And I kept getting a name, Eileen. And I said, stop it. And I would say to the person, stop writing Eileen. And it just kept going. And Eileen. And I think it's until I said, are you my spirit guide? And then there was a big yes that came out in the paper. And that was pretty amazing. And until I did that, she would not stop writing Eileen through my hands. She wanted me to recognize that she was my spirit guide. And so that was a pretty amazing thing. There was looking at our time, because I want to share a very quick story of something that happened that was pretty amazing at the Seven Sisters, and it has to do a little bit with automatic writing, but not from my hands, but from the hands of the spirit world. And this is a real story, something that I've never heard of anyone ever claiming that happened to them. So we had a, of course, at the end we had 5 beautiful rooms, and the other one on the first floor, we had a couple from Indiana. Now, this was a couple that was probably in their 50s. They were both educators and teachers, very, very conservative, very like for the ghost, but just amused by it. But they're very straightforward, very educated folks. And we were in the dining room, and all of a sudden she comes out of her room screaming and saying, "Didn't you hear me scream in there?" And I go, "No, we did not." And there was a few of us in the parlor. And we said, "No, we don't. We didn't hear you." She said, "Well, I was locked in the bathroom, and my husband finally came into the room. He was having a glass of wine on the porch. Finally returned to the room and rescued me." And I said, "What do you mean? I mean, we didn't hear any of this." And then she said that while she was in the bathroom, that a piece of luggage on its own moved in front of the door, and then the wheels, there was like a heating, air conditioning grid or air return grid on the floor. They kind of lodged into that grid on the floor, and basically she couldn't get out of the bathroom with this piece of luggage. This floor was as straight as it can be. For that to happen was incredible. So, of course, I apologized, and I said, and immediately I went into an investigative mode, and we found out that one of the children did it. Well, the next day, and that, we did a lot of investigation at night. I'm not going to shortcut the story. The next day, she came out, and she was ready to check out. And I said, anything I can do? And she said, "Were you in my room?" She asked me. And I go, "No, I was not in your room." No, there's no reason for me until you check out for me to go into your room. She said she was going to write a little, we have these guest books in the rooms that you can write your experiences on there. She was ready to write her experience in the little notebook we had. And inside the notebook was a pen that opened up the book to a page. And really big on that page, it says, "Yeah, I did it." And
Wow.
she said, she asked me, "Did you write that trying to spook me?" I said, "I would never do that." And I looked at her and I said, "You're doing this to spook me." And she went almost in tears, said, "I would never do that." And I looked at the husband, we're all looking at each other. That's the first time I ever had a spirit write something, and it was found that was connected to a very, very poltergeist type of activity that happened the night before. And that was a child saying, admitting, "Yeah, I did it." And I still have that piece of paper to this day. I've never gotten rid of it because I'll never be able to, reproduce that. I don't know if it can ever happen again.
Now, this goes back to earlier when I asked you about the equipment you bring on a hunt, and you said the most important is your mind, the sixth sense. Is there a way people can hone their sixth sense to be more effective and to maybe pick up more of what they're capable of?
Yes, I do believe. I think meditation is extremely important for that. I wish I knew the skill of meditation a lot better than I do. I'm pretty amateur at it, but I think if you mix meditation with prayer, and I am a very firm believer that you have to protect yourself, whatever faith you have, whatever higher being you follow for protection, that should be your time to meditate and get into that zone where you're able to communicate better with the dead and become more sensitive to them. So there's got to be a will, Dr. J. There's got to be a will. They will not communicate with you unless you want to communicate with them. And that is something that most people don't realize that. And I say that because a lot of folks are afraid of going to a hotel because they heard it was haunted. A lot of cases, these ghosts or these spirits, whatever they are, will not interact with you until you invite them in. And that's a very important piece of any investigation. You have to ask for that interaction.
Now, let me switch gears and spend the rest of the time. We got a little over 13 minutes left on what is happening on September 29th, 2018. But before we go on to this year, let me ask you, how did you create the National Ghost Hunting Day and why?
It was one of my spirit guides that just keeps getting me into these enormous projects. I think it was because we were in the haunted tourism, because the Seven Sisters, we realized that there was a genre of the tourism business that was not, really being promoted anywhere. And that's where Haunted Journeys came in. And we've been now in the beta period with Haunted Journeys. And we wanted to say, what can we do to showcase what we do, which is represent all these hundreds of haunted properties, whether they're inns or theaters or events or ghost tours, whatever it is. How do we best represent this? And it was, well, let's do something on National Ghost Hunting Day. And then we realized in research, there was no such thing as National Ghost Hunting Day. So we applied for it. And with the National Registry, which is a private company that does all these other national days, and they get swamped with a lot of requests. There's a national day for a lot of stuff, and only 10% of the requests get approved. And we got approved because they said, this is fantastic. We need this. Finally, someone has, applied for this. And so we had this holiday of National Day of Acknowledgement, National Ghost Hunting Day. What do we do with this day? And we sat around and we said, let's do the world's largest ghost hunt. And that happened in 2016. So in 2016, on our first annual, we had about 70 teams that joined up in about 5 countries.
5
but it was a good
countries.
start.
So you were
Yeah, 5
international
countries.
from the get-go.
And it was, yeah, so but, 5 countries, and I think that was okay. It was a noble effort. We did that, Dr. J, with 3 months of preparation. Truly, I am not joking. We did that in 3 months. Brian Cano from Haunted Collector helped me with that. And he was a very good partner in getting that together. Second year, we went up to 10 countries and about 92 teams in 5 continents. This
Wow.
year, 2018, we are going to have 154 locations in 13 countries. And this year, for the first time, we're introducing the dark continent of Africa. We have a team in South Africa who's joining us. So, fascinating. New to us this year are the Philippines. We've never had the Philippines before. We have the country of Sweden joining us this year as well. We actually have 2 teams in Hawaii, which I'm really, really stoked about, because Hawaii is a very, very mystical state, and to get them on board is pretty fun. Much fun, I should say. 154 properties around the world, and each of them are opening their doors, selling tickets for the public to come in, learn about their hauntings, and then all those are contributions, 100% for historic preservation. So it's doing a lot of good. We don't charge for this, Dr. J. Our return is getting the word out of what we stand for, which is historic preservation through the haunted.
Now,
which is
within the
something that you
U.S.,
put out there.
how many states are involved, at least this year?
I wanted to, I'm a little embarrassed because I haven't counted lately, and there was a lot new, some additional, I would say roughly of the 50 states, we probably have about 35.
Wow.
35. Mm-hmm.
So the majority
Yeah,
of the
and we
United
don't-
States.
Yeah, the majority are. There may be just one in New Mexico. Actually, we have 2 in New Mexico. Well, there might be 1 in Arizona, but I count that as Concord, Arizona. We have 2 in California. But, the West, we got to work harder on the West side, and maybe you can help us with that next year. We've not been very successful. If you look at our map, and we do have a map on our website, it looks like the United States is going to sink on the eastern border because all of the Midwest and the East and the South inundated with haunted locations. It's when it gets to the mountain and the west side that it gets a little bit, a little bit more anemic.
Now, I know it's 11 days for the 3rd one, so we still have a year plus for the 4th one, but is there any changes you plan on implementing from now until the 4th one next year in 2019?
Yeah, and thank you for asking, because I was pretty stoked about this. We're going to introduce what we call celebrated haunted towns, and we're going to have actual towns that are going to set up a holiday festivities for National Ghost Hunting Day. So we've already got a few towns that are wanting to jump on the wagon on that because they want to be known as the most haunted town in that state. So everybody's trying to get into that circuit. And that's going to be incredible because now we're engaging the whole town with this. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get away that fear factor that the haunted is bad. What we're trying to tell everyone, including the boards of tourism, that haunting is just something that's part of our life. It's part of our dimensions. Again, the haunting is history just wanting to be heard. And there's nothing spooky about this. I want to share some pretty spooky stories with you guys today, but that's the exception. That's not the rule. The rule is that these spirits are really proud of the lives that they lived, proud of the spaces that they lived in, and they want to speak, and they want to share that with us.
Now, this is something that goes back to the history of mankind, right? I would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I would
Now,
think too.
let's talk about your website, where people can find more information about National Ghost Hunting Day, which starts on September 29th.
Yes, we will. The website is very easy. It's largestghosthunt.com, and we're going to be publishing on the landing page within the next 48 hours, interactive map that once you click on it, you can get to where you can see this on Facebook Live on that day. All these hunts are going to be live streamed. They're going to be live streamed with one of our sponsors, which is Shindig. Shindig is an application that basically is a live stream on steroids. So that's going to be one of our platforms. Another platform that we have is, of course, Facebook Live, because, the paranormal cannot live without Facebook Live. So every one of the locations will be broadcasting on Facebook Live. So, again, that's going to be in that map. The quick links to those hunts will be in our map. And then we're going to have the Paratalk radio station out of New York doing a complete radio station broadcast during this hunt, where teams can call in and say, "You're not going to believe what I saw or what we felt and what we heard." So in our command center in Ohio, we're going to actually have all these different teams, all this interaction, all these live streams coordinated. So it's going to be a very incredible evening. The world will get a lot smaller and a lot busier that night.
Does this take place just that Saturday night for 14 hours, 10 p.m. till the next day noon?
Yeah, it's actually from 10 p.m. Until midnight.
Oh, midnight. Okay, because I see 12
p.m.
Yeah,
that's in the east. Yeah. So it's, we may have to change that, I'm guessing, huh? So, yes. It's only for 2 hours, but it's simultaneous around the world. So it may be 10 o'clock in Ohio, but it's going to be 7 o'clock in the morning in India and Malaysia, where we have teams. And it'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Australia, where we have 6 teams.
So you're talking about 24 hours, essentially, every time zone.
Well, no, it's 2 hours. It's 2 hours. It's
No,
2 hours.
It's 2 hours per time zone.
Per time zone.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're right. Yes.
So if you're sitting there watching Facebook Live, you're going to have essentially a 24-hour show, right?
You could. But it's no. It's still 2 hours because it's simultaneous. So at midnight, Ohio time, it's going to be done. It's going to be done at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Australia. So they start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they end at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh,
we
I
are going to be offering.
So the time is 10 to midnight Eastern time, but depending on what time zone it is, it's still going to be 10 to midnight Eastern time, as opposed to being 10 to midnight anywhere.
Yes, because we want the impact of the collective consciousness. This is all these forces together. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up because we only have a couple minutes left. Briefly, let's talk about the importance of having that many people focusing on one particular issue at the same time, because what that does is essentially elevate your consciousness and produces results.
Absolutely. In fact, we're in our third year working with the Cyclical Research Foundation out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is not a fly-by-night organization. This was an offbeat nonprofit from Duke University from the 60s. Very eloquent, very sophisticated. They have been running RNG studies with us all 2 years, and this is their third year. Random number generators it's like a flip of a coin measurement. And basically it's saying it's these little gadgets that do flip of the coins in the millionth of a second. In a normal situation, it's 50-50, heads 50, tails 50. During the world's largest ghost hunt, we change the law of probability. We actually shift the dynamics of the law of dynamics around the world. It's amazing. If we can do that, imagine what we do. And that's why we have 2 apparitions, consecutively every year. The race, the elevation of this collective consciousness, what it does to all of our hunts is unbelievable. It's one of the most amazing experiences I've ever felt metaphysically.
Now,
so we're very excited about it.
We are out of time. We have about a minute left. Briefly, if you have one final statement to everybody, what would you say?
Come and visit our website, largestghosthut.com, and join in the fun. Join our mailing list, and we will ping you, let you know where to go to on this phenomenal day. And above all, thank you, Dr. J, for being a part of this year.
Absolutely, Maria. And I do hope after it's done, you can report to us some of the EVPs or stories you get to hear from around the world. That's going to be amazing to talk about. And I truly look forward to it.
I cannot wait for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
So again, I want to thank you, Maria, for joining us. Everybody, be sure to check out National Ghost Hunting Day. It is, as you heard, this is going on in 5 continents. Real quick, I want to give some thanks and shout outs here. I want to thank Katie and Daryl Neely from Late Night in the Midlands for working so hard on keeping this network running. We also have in the United Kingdom, JC from Deprogram Radio Network, also broadcasting the same time. We have Wise Frog of Black Swamp Digital Radio. We also have PSN Radio and Paranormal Kings and Truth Cats, all of them spreading the word. And remember, folks, the main reason I do this show is to bring information to you. It's all about information so we can get to disclosure. Disclosure on any topic, because the more you are informed and the less you pay attention to the mainstream media, the better chance you are to get the real story. And the more you are informed, the bigger the chances are that you're going to go out and spread the true word. That's what we're here for, truth. I also want to remind you folks that the only thing you need to remember with regards to the show is the name of the show. That is Dr. J Radio Live, DRJ Radio Live. Every social media account, including Minds. If everyone does not have Minds yet, I highly recommend you getting it. It's like Facebook, only way better, and it pays you in cryptocurrency, MINDS. So with Minds, we also have, of course, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, Pinterest, Google+, the website, you name it. Whatever it is, you can find the account under DRJ Radio Live. And one more thing I want to say, if you guys have guest requests, email Dr. J Radio Live guests, GUESTS, at gmail.com. Again, Dr. J Radio Live guests at gmail.com for guest requests. With that being said, folks, I hope you enjoyed this double whammy of a show. The first hour with Joel Skousen, the second hour with Miss Maria Schmidt. And with that being said, folks, this is Dr. J, and I am officially signing off.